Everyone wants to be part of a positive, life-changing experience. Steps for Life offers that chance in multiple ways. It creates hope and healing for people affected by workplace tragedies, and it helps change health and safety culture for the better. Joining me today from Steps for Life Kingston are Alyssa Grokut and Vibke Wilkins. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
So pretty serious issue here, but what can you give me a sense of, like, how often does this occur? How often do workplace tragedies occur in the country?
There are approximately 1,000 work-related fatalities every year in Canada, and we do see that that number is relatively stable. We're not seeing much of a decrease in the past few decades. So yeah, approximately.
So that's a lot. That's a big number.
Yeah.
So how, and Vibke, maybe you can chat about this, but what is the role of Steps for Life? What is Steps for Life as an organization?
So Steps for Life is the fundraising arm of an organization called Threads for Life. And Threads for Life was founded back in the late 1990s. I remember the initial quilt that was actually designed to commemorate the people who had lost their lives at work. And here in Ontario, we have roughly one person a day who actually dies, either from a traumatic injury or from an illness that they suffer. And so what the organization does, it actually provides support for the people who are left behind. So when you get that terrible knock on the door that your mother or your father or your brother or your sister aren't going to be coming home that day, the organization actually helps to connect those individuals with resources within their community that actually helps them cope with that loss.
Okay, so that was one of my follow-up questions is where, it was mentioned in the press release that there's been a significant amount of money that's been raised in Kingston over the last 8 years, just over $100,000. What does that money do to help support these families?
So that money goes to actually link those individuals then with those resources that are available. And here in Kingston, it was actually a lady from Amherst that actually reached out to Threads for Life to actually, we didn't have a local chapter here in Kingston until 8 years ago.
Okay.
And so she made the initial contact and said, we'd really like to get something going here in Kingston to provide support for families. What happens on the industrial or construction accident site, there's the enforcement bodies that actually investigate what happened to that individual, and they quite often will link the surviving family members to the organization. And then they can reach out and see what resources they actually need and how they can help in that particular situation.
Can you, Alyssa, are you able to share a couple of maybe one or two personal stories of families that have been affected by workplace tragedy?
Yeah, I can actually share my own personal story.
Oh, okay.
So when I was 11 years old, my dad was killed in a workplace safety incident.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so he was a heavy-duty mechanic working up in Fort McMurray in the oil sands, and he was run over by a 797 haul truck. So while my mom and I didn't use any of the resources from Threads of Life at the time, I have been dedicated to promoting workplace safety in my youth and as an adult. And so that's why I volunteer for Threads of Life, is to help promote their cause.
Wow, so unfortunately, first-hand experience in dealing with this.
Yes.
How has Steps for Life helped your family? How has it helped support you and your family?
Well, I haven't used the resources personally, but I do see the value in the resources that they do provide. So they have a speakers bureau, which is not just for supporting family, but also for raising awareness and more on the prevention side. So the speakers bureau, they train family members that are affected by workplace tragedy to go speak in organizations. So an organization can bring in one of these volunteers to speak about their experience, and then that helps in promoting safety. And then the Families Connect and peer support are also resources provided to family members. And there's many stories that I see on LinkedIn in particular that people share of how useful it's been.
Thanks for sharing that with us. Has the awareness of Steps for Life Kingston, or I guess the broader national group Steps for Life, what has been the influence, or has there been some influence on the workplace safety policies in Canada?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think so. I mean, I personally have been in the occupational health and safety field now for 40 years. both as an enforcement officer with the Ministry of Labour, Immigration, Training, Skills Development, as well as HRDC labour programs, and I run my own consulting practice here in Kingston. And I think certainly when we hear the story of a tragic loss, it certainly brings people together and makes them realize just how important things are. Like Alyssa said earlier, the statistics, unfortunately, though, are pretty steady. So we continue to see 3 deaths per day across Canada. Ontario tends to be one of the safer provinces. But I think certainly when it hits close to home, people do become more aware of it. So the very first event that we were able to hold in person after the pandemic, unfortunately happened 6 weeks after we lost a member of my Health and Safety Excellence Program participant firms. They actually had a young 20-year-old who was killed in a workplace accident. And I think certainly that kind of sent those waves through, like, this is really important for us to do. Do I want to see more people that actually embrace the whole concept of prevention? Absolutely. Because it's still something that we as health and safety professionals keep saying that we want to put ourselves out of business at some point. But unfortunately, the statistics stay fairly consistent. And we can certainly do more as a community, as an organization, and just linking all of the different people together. And it starts very, very young, because when you look at the statistics in Ontario, I think 14% of the incidences that occur that are reported to the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board deal with young workers. And young workers are defined as those workers who are working between the ages of 14 and 25. And that's a group where we certainly try and send volunteers out to speak at high schools if somebody's going on a co-op program, and a lot of people still have this attitude, it's not going to happen to me, it happened to that other person. But it's really important to get that message across, I think, at a very early age, because we all take risks, whether it be at work or at home or at wherever, but we need to take smart risks and take, I'm not one of these consultants that wants to bubble wrap individuals. Things happen, but we can plan jobs out safely so that we avoid that really tragic end at the end of the day when someone doesn't come home from work.
So we got a couple minutes left here. You have an important event coming up. This is your annual fundraiser. This is where you raise money and raise awareness. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? What's happening? When is it happening? How can people get involved?
For sure. So we have the Kingston Steps for Life event coming up on Saturday, April 27th. So we do this every year around the National Day of Mourning, which is April 28th, a day to honor those who have been killed, injured, or sustained illness at the workplace. It's also around the Safety Week, which is the following week. And so we are the first walk in Canada this Saturday.
Oh, so it's this Saturday already.
Yep.
So it's being billed as a family-friendly event, of course. What can people expect on that day?
Okay, so we're hosting it at the Little Cataraqui Conservation Authority at the Outdoor Centre. Registration starts at 9:15 in the morning. We have refreshments there, welcoming remarks, and then we have the trails picked out where people are going to walk. And the way that we've set it up for the last 4 years is we have a memory forest where there's pictures of all those individuals who unfortunately have passed. And then there's another, so everybody has to walk 5 kilometers. And then we have refreshments, chatting, getting people together. We're really hoping that we have a really huge sea of yellow, because every walker gets a yellow t-shirt as a take-home piece. And we're just hoping that we really can raise the awareness within our community.
Nice. Coming back to you, Alyssa, what is your, obviously you have a very personal story to this and reason why you're involved. But what have you gotten out of being involved in this organization over the last years?
I would say that I've gotten to see how useful supports and resources are for people. So I'm actually a PhD candidate at Queen's University, and I was researching workplace safety, particularly the consequences for indirect victims, so family members, coworkers, and leaders. And one of my big things is what support and resources can we provide? So I think what I've really gotten out of being involved with Threads and Steps for Life is that seeing that impact of supports and resources being provided to families.
Thank you both so much for coming in today. I wish you best of luck with the event, and I hope you raise lots of awareness and some money as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for having us.